Hi everyone, this is Keito, and today I'm going to be making a new series. I'm not exactly sure what I should call it, but basically it's a roadmap series heavily inspired by a former War of Divisions YouTuber by the name of Theorycraft Games. What Theorycraft Games did was he provided sort of a roadmap for upcoming events, units, vision cards, equipment, all those kinds of things to help players sort of make a decision on whether they want to go for certain units or just if they want to plan in general using the foresight that is available for us, global players. Unfortunately, Theorycraft Games has stopped making videos a while ago, but I just remember them being so helpful for me as a new player, so I'm hoping to sort of carry that spirit on. And if this video can sort of help people make decisions and provide them with insight, that would be wonderful. So without further ado, I'd like to start off with the month of February. So in general, it's sort of a good idea to sort of see a 4-month. There are obviously exceptions, right? The big one being Rain EX, but usually there's about a 4-month time difference between what gets released in JP side and what gets released in global side. So what I thought I'd do is sort of go through and run down the contents that were released on the JP server in February and sort of see how the new units, how the equipment sort of matches up currently in JP. So basically over the course of 4 months, how have these units, how have these equipments, have they aged sort of? That is kind of what I'm going over. A fair warning, so I am going to try to be as objective as possible in this video, but the thing is, I think it's inevitable that personal bias sort of comes into play, so please take everything I say with a grain of salt. I am basing most of my arguments off of watching JP players, kind of playing around myself, but in the end, right, I think it's impossible for anyone to be completely unbiased, so please take that in consideration. Okay, so thank you very much, and moving on, I think I want to get started with the new units that were released in February. So there were 3 units that were released in the month of February on the JP side. That is Black Rose Helena, Valentine's Day Salir, and Camilo. And so I am pretty sure that we will be getting Black Rose Helena, but the thing is, with Valentine's Salir, since this was a Valentine's limited unit, I'm not entirely sure if they will release her in global soon. I think it will follow sort of the trend of winter units where they will actually match the season of releasing them, so we might not see Valentine's Day Salir. That being said, I do fully expect Camilo to be making an appearance alongside the selection quests, which is a new type of content that will be released soon. So what I have here is I've sort of given each unit, and this is I think where the personal bias comes, but I did try being as objective as possible, but if you have different thoughts, please let me know in the comment section, and I'd love to discuss them. One thing I do also want to know is I really appreciate the people who have been contributing to really fun, insightful discussions in the comment section, so thank you very much to those people, I really appreciate it. And so going on to sort of how have I graded it, I basically split it up into 3 different categories. One category is PvP, what you see in high-end arena, high-end guild battle, but this also doesn't consider class match, just because I don't watch too much class match footage, so I'm not entirely sure. But I do think that if a unit is strong in PvP in general, they would be fine in class match. That is my overall sense. I think what class match does is it enables units that don't shine too well in PvP, or like other sorts of PvP, to shine in class match. But yes, that being said, I will admit that I don't really look at the class match side, unfortunately. The next category I have is PvE, so this is like general farming, or other PvE related content. And the final category is TMR, so just solely looking at their TMR. And I also included sort of an other highlight sections where these units can sort of shine. So moving on, let's start with Black Rose Helena. I think everybody knows, but Black Rose Helena is an exceptionally strong unit that it still sees one of the most plays in JP side in terms of PvP. She is without a doubt, if I were to ever give a 5-star rating to a unit, I think Black Rose Helena is basically probably the strongest candidate for it, alongside Yuna currently in the current meta on global, and King Mont. I think Black Rose Helena is just such a versatile unit. She has incredibly crazy AoE, she has utility, she has both Spirit Pen and Magic Resistance breaks, or penetration / downs. So she is just very strong. You can't really go wrong using her. And that is evidenced by her still seeing top play in JP meta as well. I will say that I think just to show how strong of a unit Black Rose Helena is, almost every unit that gets released, a lot of people keep saying, oh, this is the Black Rose Helena killer. An example being Mua, Charlotte, and while to an extent that is true, it hurts Black Rose Helena, she still sees play. And I think that is a sign of how strong of a unit she is. In terms of PvE, I think that her incredible AoE will just help you clear rounds very fast and is a very effective farmer. Her TMR is also really nice. It raises agility and also reduces incoming damage, so that's very strong for frontline units. I wouldn't say it's the best TMR because in my opinion the strongest TMRs are usually have to relate with AP generation, so I'm thinking of Ziza's Bells and Orura. And when it comes to being able to use it, I think that this is a little bit lower compared to the usability scaling, but it's still a very, very strong TMR. Please keep in mind that this TMR though is pretty limited in which units can equip them. So other highlights for Black Rose Helena is she's very good in 2 of the upcoming raids sorry, it's not Wolfmaster, it's Urufura Maita. I misread that as Wolfmaster when I was creating this slide, I apologize. But that is the Valentine's raid that is coming up, and I will be talking about it a bit later, as well as she is pretty good in the Carbuncle raid. She's not the most important unit, I would say, but she's still she's still fine. So moving on, we have Valentine's Day Salir. This is a unit that sparked a bit of controversy on the global side, and I won't get into that too much, but she is a strong unit. I think that with the introduction of a VC that is coming out, the Frieza's card, it makes her a very incredibly strong unit. I wouldn't put her on the same level as Helena, but I think in the right comps and in the right maps, she is one of the strongest units. It just depends on whether it's it just depends on time. So for PvE, she's just an average farmer, or she's an average clearer. She does everything fine. She doesn't have anything too exceptional. She's just like one of your very stable DPSers. Her TMR I have at 2 out of 5 because I think it is personally pretty bad. It's Howlett's TMR except for magical. So for those who don't know, it is a 20%, it takes 20% of your HP and it gives you 200% magic reflex. So that's okay, right? But it's just such a narrow applicability in terms of using it. Like, for example, I've never seen anybody use this TMR. I've never really seen anybody use Howlett's TMR, and that's been out for a long time. So I have it at a 2 out of 5. I don't want to give it a 1 out of 5 because I think I never say never, except for maybe really, really bad TMRs, which I'm thinking along the lines of maybe like Engelbert's TMR. Even then, I would probably not give it a 1. For me, I think 1 has to be like there's just no window to use it. And I think there as long as there's a possibility, it deserves at least a 2. But it's not a great TMR. Keep in mind, it's also an armor slot TMR, and it gives, I think, and TMR armors don't really give good base defense and spirit stats, so therefore I am giving this a 2 out of 5. She is very good in the Typhon Challenge quest, which will let you farm the silver glasses. And that pretty much sums up Saria. Um, yeah, she doesn't see much play currently in JP, but I think all it matters again is just the timing. If it's the right map and if it's, you know, if you have the keys to make it work, then she is a very strong unit. Moving on to Camilo. So Camilo is the first selection quest unit you will receive. So he is a free UR unit that you can build for absolutely free as long as you can complete the selection quests. He's a really fun unit to use, I think. He has access to 3 different attack types, which is really neat. He has Dragoon, Sniper, and Pugilist, so he has 3 attack types, which is great. I think he is really, and that makes him fun to use in PvP. That being said, his stats are a bit on the weaker side. And one thing I kind of want to clear up is some people have the misconception that having Camilo will let you win against Black Rose Helena. And what's important to consider is, yes, Camilo is very strong against Black Rose Helena, but the thing is, right, in a lot of PvP, it's not just about the one-on-one. Since you're fighting in teams, there are opportunities where Camilo will, a team with Camilo will lose to a team with Black Rose Helena. For example, you have a Camilo team. If a Camilo team runs against the triple 100 cost Dwayne, Black Rose Helena, and Super Stern Comp, for example, Camilo will lose. But the conditions are for Camilo to shine is you have to place him opposite to Black Rose Helena, and you have to consider the other 2 units. Your 2 units will have to be able to take care of the other 2 units. Just wanted to get that sort of cleared up. It's not sort of like a answer, you know, a 100% counter to Black Rose Helena. His PvE, he doesn't really have much going for him in terms of PvE. He's a very standard unit. He doesn't have that much AoE, and since he is a melee unit, you might want to build some AP regeneration on him, which kind of makes him, I think, a bit on the lower side. So his TMR, I believe, it's a cross-pattern self-target AoE that raises light attack and accuracy. And so that's a pretty cool TMR, I think, and so I have it at average. Okay, so moving on, we have the new vision cards that will be released. We will first be getting Ruby Demon Carbuncle. I think that's the best translation I could get from it, especially judging from the forehead of Carbuncle being a ruby. But it's a light party VC. The raw stats it gives is 327 health and 163 magic and 2 spirit. So those are some pretty nice stats, especially if you are a magic caster. It gives a healthy amount of HP and a lot of magic, and spirit is always helpful. So those are really nice raw stats. The party ability is very well rounded. It gives 28% missile resistance, 8 extra spirit, and 40 defense debuff resistance. So that's a really well-rounded, nice, general party ability for light units. I think it'll be very strong, especially when we get into sort of the map with a lot of rangers on it. And it's very good into Frederica EX. So that's nice. The limited bestowed effect is only to light units as well. It gives 10% extra magic, 10 defense, and 5 evade. So you're getting 8 spirit and 10 defense for whoever is using this VC. So again, it's a very nice all-rounder VC in my opinion. The evade is, while small, it's something. But I think the real highlight here is giving both defense and spirit. That's very strong. Keep in mind, Global also gets a bonus, global. I forgot what they called it. I think it's global exclusive bonus, where they will give certain units extra stats from this VC. I wonder who is going to get this. Obviously, it has to be a light unit, but I'm wondering what unit would be the targeted bestowed effect. So I don't think it will be Yuna because they tend to not do these with limited ones, but perhaps maybe they'll just limited to like staff wielding light units or something like along those lines. It'll be interesting to see. The next VC we get is Hailstorm Dragon Freezes. Sorry, I'm not sure if that would be the best translation, but that is what I got from it. It gives very similar stats. It gives 338 HP, 142 magic, and 4 defense. So again, healthy amounts of HP, a little bit less magic, but a little bit more defense. Its party ability is limited only to ice units, and it will give ice attack up 35, crit damage plus 13, and HP plus 25%. So that's a very, very strong VC for ice units. Its bestowed effect will be 30% extra magic as well. So that is an insanely strong ice VC. So in terms of the global exclusive bonus, depending on, if we get Valentine Selir, I think it's pretty easy to anticipate Selir getting the bestowed effect from this, but other candidates would be probably Midiana, Freyevia, and what other ice magic users are there? Sorry, I can't remember off the top of my head, but maybe things like Shell as well. But we'll have to wait and see. It's a very, very strong VC. Keep in mind, both of these VCs will also be non-limited VCs, so you can get them whenever you want. In terms of play, I don't see Carbuncle being used at all, I think. I can't remember the last time I've seen a Carbuncle being used in terms of GB, PvP, but I'm sure it's good in a lot of PvE scenarios if you're running a light comp. I think the only reason why we don't see this too much is because we don't really see that many light compositions currently in the game. Sorry, this is on JP's side. And as well as for Freezes, it's basically a mandatory in any single ice composition, but that's about it. The frequency of what we see, the frequency of ice units we see isn't that much, but it's certainly like there. You will see the occasional ice comp. So moving on to units that will get their EX, this pertains to existing units who are getting their EX. So I had a hard time sort of trying to rank these people. I don't like the idea of ranking them, but I thought what a fair sort of rating system would be to kind of go with who is the person that would want to EX these units. And so the rating system I used was sort of like the titles that we get. So what I'm going to be doing is rating characters EXs by anybody, which means anybody would probably want to EX this unit. That means that the unit is very, very strong and that their EX is probably well worth it. An example of this would probably be something like Frederica EX. So the next one would be fans. So in the game, if you take your unit on 100 games, then you will be given the fan title. And so this is for people who sort of are fans of the unit. Then EXing this unit would probably be for you. For enthusiasts, these are people who take this unit onto 1,000 games, which shows that you're pretty enthusiastic about that unit. So then I would recommend EX to that person. And finally, we have devotees, which is somebody who takes that unit to 3,000 games, which really shows that you are pretty hardcore on that unit and you really enjoy them. So then I would recommend EX to that person. So anybody would probably be like the quote-unquote best rating I would give, and devotees would be the most narrow rating I would give. So starting with Masheri, so Masheri EX is sort of a... I feel bad saying this, but it's sort of a swing and a miss in my opinion. I think it's fair to note that she does get pretty good stats from it, like I think she gets 8 agility from her EX panels, which is really nice. But the problem is just Masheri as a unit in general is just such a hard unit to use because her LB scales off of attack, but she's like a magic wielder. Like she's magic oriented, but she has a skill that scales off of attack, but she can't even get that much high magic. I think if you like brute force everything into specking magic with her, then you can get into the thousands range, but it's still kind of hard for her. So that being said, an EX is still an EX, right? And she benefits greatly from it. So if you are a Masheri devotee, then I would recommend EXing her, but only if you are devoted to this unit. For Lamada, her EX gives her a lot of attack, and she has a very, very nice level 25 ability, which is an ability that gets rid of all buffs before doing damage. So it's a strong ability, she's fun to use, and I think that if you are a Lamada enthusiast, then EXing is a solid option for you. Mish EX is the EX I'm most excited for out of these 5 units. He gets an upgrade to his Toad where he gets, I think it's range 5, it might even be range 6, I think it was range 5 Toad, and he basically has no cast time, and so he's really fun to play with. That being said, Mish is a rare unit, so his stats are generally going to be very limited, and he's going to be gatekept from high level content in terms of his EX. So if you are a Mish enthusiast, then I would recommend EXing him. Dorando, I kind of struggled on. I was really teetering between fans and enthusiasts, but in the end I gave him enthusiasts. I think that his EX is one of probably the better MR EXs. And the thing is, he is very valuable for the Earth Selection quest that will be happening approximately in a month and a half on the global side. And so he is an EX unit that I don't think you will regret EXing, because he's just that valuable for the selection quests. Keep in mind, he has an EX upgraded ability, which basically is King Mont's LB. It's just that it's not going to have a 66% modifier, I believe it's a 25% modifier. But even then, with a 25% modifier, Berserk is such a strong status affliction that I think it's worth it. It's pretty good. And he'll be kind of fun, especially since Dorando has his own VC. I think that with those two together, like I still don't think you're going to be in the top. You're going to be able to use him for top level PvP content, but he's still fun to use. And I think that if you are an enthusiast, or if you just like Dorando in general, you won't regret EXing him. Shurizeruto, I have him at Devotee, but I'm going to be honest, I just have never seen anybody use Shuzelt EX. I think he's probably, it would make sense that he's good in the Leviathan raid that's coming out, that came out I think it was late March maybe? Or maybe it was early, I think it was early April actually. It would make sense for him to be good in that raid, but even then he wouldn't be a priority unit. So yeah, sorry, I just don't have much information on Shizeruto. So that about wraps up the EX units. Moving on, we have the new equipment that will be released in the month of February. So the first equipment we get is the Spine Blade. This is a sword that specializes in defense penetration. You'll notice here that even the Assault Blade doesn't have a crazy amount of attack. 154 is still very high, but it's not like the highest out of any sword. And so you're exchanging 15 slash attack for the standard sword, like Nagnarok, for 20 defense penetration. I think this is a solid option. A lot of people said that this is a sword for Dwayne, because this was released right with Dwayne. And yeah, I think it's a sword that it's worth farming for. I think you might want to have one of them, but for characters who already have their elemental type sword, this is probably not worth it for them. So moving on, we have the Sword of Light, which will be run in the Final Fantasy I collaboration rerun. It will give 30 light attack up and 15 slash attack up, so this is a sword that's amazing for light sword wielders. The 152 attack here is fine because it's supplemented by 38 light attack up. So that's really great. I think you might want to farm multiple of these if you're because since there are a lot of light units that wield swords, right? I'm thinking of Cecil, Warrior of Light, Ramza. So there's a lot of units that want this. So I think this is the sword that if you're going to farm a lot of, and you have a lot of light units, it's worth farming multiples of. I'm going to hope that the drop rate of this was comparable to like Armor of Light back then in the original rerun, but I don't think that's the case. I think they made them as the standard drop rates nowadays, which is a bit more rare. Lastly, we have the silver glasses. I wasn't really sure how to translate this. It's Ginbuchi Megane in Japanese. It's not quite silver glasses. It's like silver, like old-fashioned styled silver glasses. But I thought silver glasses probably was just the best way to translate this. So this is a pretty niche item. It gives blind resistance, which is okay. But the more highlight of this is the 20 spirit penetration. So this accessory gives no defense, it gives no spirit, it gives you a lot of accuracy. If you're going to be using this item, I think you want to have it in aim. To be honest, I don't see anybody really using this item. It's good for some mages who have lower luck in terms of being able to hit things, but other than that, I don't remember the last... Sorry, correction. So the people are kind of bringing up this item again for the recently released Dress Up Glaciella, because Glaciella's kit sort of revolves around spirit penetration. So in that sense, it's a pretty good item. But again, the prevalence of this is not too high. I don't think I've seen it being used aside from that. So moving on to our final piece of new content, we have the Valentine Day raid. So the raid boss here is the Urufura Maita. I accidentally translated that as Wolf Hunter before in the first slide. I don't know why, I think I just misread that, I'm sorry about that. So it remains highly questionable if we're going to get this raid because it was labeled as the Valentine's raid. And since it is not Valentine's anymore, it would feel a little bit weird. That being said, I think the Urufura Maida is generic. It looks generic enough that they might just put this in as a regular raid. Keep in mind, Global is pretty behind on the raid schedule, so I'm not sure if we're going to see this. It might just be a skip and they would go straight into, what was the raid after this? Sorry, I can't, Carbuncle. We might go straight into Carbuncle. That being said, I wouldn't feel too bad about skipping this raid. The reward for this is the chocolate pudding earrings, and basically what it does is it gives you 25% extra health for the first 3 turns. So it's sort of like the defense bracer, but instead of missile resistance for 3 turns, you get extra health. And you also get 25% stun resistance. So the stun resistance is pretty nice, I will admit. Sometimes it just feels so bad when you get stunned by Stun Blade, and you just... that was the crucial turn, so that's really nice. But I think this is really only useful on maps that have really close quarters. I'm thinking something maybe along of Castle Exterior, where it's possible to engage in combat even on the first turn. Then I think the 25% extra health might be worth it. Also might be good on Drain Force builds where you have somebody go in real fast. But other than that, the raw stats it gives is nothing too impressive. I will note that I think it gave either 13 or 16 defense, and it's actually pretty rare to have high defense accessories. I think the prime example we have right now is Elven Cloak at 16 defense. But even then, the Elven Cloak gives you a little bit more in terms of raw stats than these earrings. So Urufura Maita is very weak to dark and magic. So obviously the unit here is the large bonus unit, Dark Rose Helena. That'll be a very good unit. But you can't, at least I haven't seen anybody solo Urufura Maita with just Black Rose Helena, because you will first run out of HP if you go in, AP if you go in solo, and Urufura Maita actually hits pretty hard. Especially when he gets into low health, he'll activate Berserk mode, which makes him especially weak to magic because it lowers his spirit, but he just does a lot of damage. So I haven't seen anybody actually solo this like you could with Glacial and King Mott, or Diabolos and Yuna. but it is possible to duo it. The standard duo pair solo run was, sorry, that was really convoluted. The standard pair auto run was Helena and Garvel. Those two units together will be able to take on Urfara Maita all the way up to level 100. Let's see, what else do I have? I have the bonuses listed out on that chart. The rare raid boss is a water chocolate flan. And so that's kind of why Frederica is listed as the other large bonus unit here. So moving on to our final part, this is the part where I talk about equipment and content that will be reintroduced into the game with rerun events. So the first noticeable rerun event we're having is the Final Fantasy I collaboration rerun. And in this event, we will have access to reacquire Warrior of Light, Armor of Light, and the Death Machine VC. So first going into Warrior of Light, I think he is worth pulling if you like the unit. In terms of usability, we really don't see him too much. Just as a pure generic tank, I think King Mont sort of eclipses Warrior of Light. That being said, I think Warrior of Light does offer things that King Mont doesn't. I think in terms of just pure tankiness, I think Warrior of Light is slightly stronger, especially since he also does have Stop Blade, which is just such a game-deciding status effect. And since he has multiple casts of that, unlike King Mont's Berserk LB, I think that's sort of worth noting. That being said, I think you shouldn't feel bad if you want to skip him. Armor of Light is a very dependable piece of armor. It gives really nice spirit resist for the barrier version, and even the shield version is also pretty well rounded, so you don't feel bad. I personally built both versions. I built the shield version and the barrier version, and there are times where I'm really glad that I've done so, especially because in the original event, I think this was very easy to farm. So yeah, I would recommend building this if you haven't. I think the times I've used this has gone down, but that's just kind of due to the natural influx of other equipment we have available. Death Machine VC is something that I regret not pulling, but if you ask me, is it necessary? I'm not too sure. So for me, I guess one thing is I thought since I pulled the Winter Holiday VC, I thought it would not be necessary to pull Death Machine. Because they basically have the same party ability, which is increasing area of effect damage reduction by 20. And so I thought, okay, well, as long as I have the Winter Holiday VC, I'm okay. And so I thought I wouldn't feel bad about skipping this unit, this VC, but it turns out there are a lot of cases where I do want an offensive attacker, a physical attacker, and I can't really put on Winter Holiday because that is a magic-oriented VC. And so there have been times where I was like, oh, I wish I had Death Machine VC. It's important to note that the elemental mastery buff of Death Machine, I believe, is critical evade up 20, which is pretty nice. It's one of the more overlooked kind of stats in the game with pretty good reason, but it's still something. Overall, would I recommend pulling this? I don't think I see too many. I don't really see this being run too much. I'm trying to think of any comps that do run it, because even the fire teams, I believe, just don't run this. Sorry, let me think. Yeah, I don't think the fire teams run this VC either, but in general, it's still a fine VC to run, so I wouldn't feel bad about pulling this, but it's pretty easy to sort of kind of gloss over, I think, and you shouldn't feel bad about skipping this as well. So we will be getting Garvel's Far Plane Story rerun as well, and that will give us access to the Dark Glove and the Golden Blade. Sorry, I should have put those two together, but Golden Blade is a very good greatsword. I would recommend at least having one because it's still probably the best generic greatsword. Velric and Auron have a better greatsword in terms of having the shimmering blade, but otherwise greatsword is the best offensive greatsword you can have. So I think it's worth farming at least one of them. Dark Gloves is also a mandatory for Garvel and for Valentine's Salir, so I would recommend building one. If you plan on using them both together, then having two, but I think just having one is fine. That being said, I do think that you want to farm at least one if you have those units. If you don't have those units, then it's a pretty easy skip. But I will say Garvel and Valentine's Salir are probably good units to have in terms of PvP. Platinum Mace, I think you should farm at least one of. I think it's still the best mace. Yeah, I think it's still the best mace, so I think it's worth farming them. Coral Sword is also if you have lightning units, so if you have Orlandeau, if you have Lavia, if you have... I'm thinking who else? I think I'm missing a couple lightning units here and there. I think Charlotte could use this, but I believe most people run Charlotte as a pure tank, as in they don't run in a weapon slot on her. So I don't think it's necessary on her, but if she's good for the Leviathan raid, and in that case, then I would put the Coral Sword on her. But otherwise, yeah, if you don't have it, again, if you don't have the units for it, then it's not really worth your time. But it is generally, I like recommending at least doing the quests, because if you can keep the recipes and not actually build the equipment, and so while you're acquiring the recipes, you also get the equipment material, and that is applicable to other equipments. So I think it's always a nice idea to farm them in your free time. And so that about wraps up the sort of quote-unquote roadmap I have for the JP side for the month of February. We can expect these things to be coming out in June over on the global side with certain adjustments. But I hope this provides some insights for everybody watching this video. I hope it kind of helps you. And if you have any questions or, advice on how to make these videos better, please let me know. And so with that, I think that will conclude this video. Thank you very much, and good luck on the battlefields of Ardra.